Hello, dreamers, doers, believers, and achievers, wonderful winners and powerful pinners. How are you? I'm Dwayne Shigg, and I want to welcome you to Talking Books. This is a place for people who like books, reading them and writing them. And we have a fabulous show tonight. We've got a guest tonight that's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very good, informative, inspiring, informative, as I said, show. This day we have Dr. Joyce Brooks with us. She's the author of Finding Serenity, Courage, and Unconditional Love. How are you today, Dr. Brooks?
I'm okay. Good.
I thank you for taking out the time to be with us on Talking Books and to tell, in this case, to tell your story. It is a fascinating story. Some would say a sad story, but I'm quite sure something that will give enlightenment and help some people. Before we get into that, how long have you been writing? I mean, is this your first book?
No, it's not my first book because I have a doctorate degree. So actually I wrote my doctorate dissertation.
Okay.
And I've written 3 ebooks in addition to this, my first paperback.
Okay, okay. And what does writing do for you? A lot of times people write for a variety of reasons. They just want to talk, they want to make some money, so when you write, what does writing do for you?
Well, it's interesting because for me, writing has always been, when they say a hobby, it's been my release. It's always been something I've enjoyed doing. However, writing this book was a whole different turn from my traditional reason for writing. Like I said, in the past, I've written books just because I like to write. And I never really published back in the days until I got my doctorate degree. I got my doctorate degree, and that was just for the purpose of, my education and things like that. And so I kind of left my desire of pleasurable writing for a long time. And I didn't pick that back up for many years. And when this unfortunate tragedy happened in my life, I was searching for a way to heal. And during my healing process, I started to slowly writing again. And before I knew it, I realized that the writing was part of my healing process. So I, since then, have continued to write.
Okay. Let's let the people know the book, Finding Serenity, Courage, and Unconditional Love. What is this book about?
This book is the true story, unfortunately, of horrendous homicide, a double homicide, my son and his fiance. I call it the story that no mother should ever have to write. This story was written, like I said, as part of my healing process. A year and a half after the homicide, I started to journal because, you search for ways to heal.
Right.
And before I knew it, I realized that the journaling was actually helping me to release and to refine my purpose. And I happened to meet my coach who said, hey, why don't you go ahead and write that book? You say you want to write it. And I said, you know what? It's probably time. And so it has taken me this long to be able to write again. But once I started, I couldn't stop. So now I'm writing my 5th book.
Okay.
Poetry. So yeah, it all just started back because of what I experienced. It gave me the renewing and my reason to start back writing.
Okay. Now you said this book was a true story about your son and his fiance. Tragic story, double homicide. Why would you decide to tell this story? People may be asking, why did you decide to tell this story?
And I'm so glad you asked me that. There's 2 reasons, the twofold reason that I want to tell this story. After the incident happened, as a mother that was grieving, the first thing, anybody who's ever experienced this type of grief, you realize the first thing you do is try to figure out the next day, okay, how do I go on? What do I do now? How do you even wake up that next day? You don't know what to do. You're totally lost. And I remember sitting in that moment thinking, wow, where can I find a book or something to tell me, what do I do? Because you're lost.
Right.
So I couldn't find anything. And I kind of had to rely on my faith and my prayers and my friends and people until eventually I found a way. And so I realized later, you know what, there's going to be other people to wake up that next day wondering, what can I do? And I want to give them something to say, hey, you know what? This is what I did. Try this. And so in addition to this book, one of my ebooks is a companion grief book called Grieving Through the Grief, to help people to overcome tragedies. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason this book is so important and so informative to help people, it is about stalking. And I want to enhance an awakening on the laws against stalking, how they, the system is not okay. The system needs to be fixed. And so I want to bring in awareness. And I'm opening a foundation in honor of my son and his fiance. And in addition to that, this book hopefully can spark that awareness to domestic violence and stalking laws.
Okay. Now the stalking, obviously you may not want to give too much of it away, but let the people know. So just the focus of the story is the stalking of your son and his fiance by someone else?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Has that person been apprehended?
Well, I can't tell you that part.
Okay, I understand.
It's actually a huge cliffhanger. So that's why you really need to see that part in the book, because nobody would imagine what would happen next.
Okay, I understand. And I've alluded to this, but how can you, I can imagine people are saying, how could you go through this and then put it on paper? And so what did writing this do specifically for you? I know you talked about, you wanted to help other people, and it was a part of your healing, but was there something else that it actually did to or for you that kind of, pushed you to write?
Absolutely. My son and I used to talk every day. That was my best friend, and we had numerous conversations. And the hardest thing for me was to wake up and say, I can't imagine not talking to him. He's not calling me, I'm not calling him. So I felt, when I started to journal, I felt like this was my way of communicating. Still, he's not here physically, but I know I'm very spiritual, and I know, hey, I need to just put this in the atmosphere. And I just felt like God was giving me the strength. The Holy Spirit was helping me to guide me to write this. And as I began to write, I felt like I was having that conversation. Part of it was me having that conversation still, not with him, but per se, in place of talking to him. This helped me to say, hey, I can still communicate. And it was weird how the healing just started. Yeah. And again, like I said, once I started, I began to feel different. And so I just couldn't stop at that point. I knew that, you know what, I need to continue to write this book. And like I say, since that book, I'm actually writing, like I say, my 5th piece of literature about my son. And again, the healing still continues. I think it's going to be a forever process, because you never can truly get over this type of grief, the magnitude of it.
I would imagine so. How difficult, if at all, well, I know it had to be, how difficult was it, in the writing process to relive, the incidents so that you could put it on paper? And then part 2 of that question, how did you do that? What allowed you, helped you to do that, to get through? How difficult was it? What was that process like, and how did you make it through?
To be honest, and I know it may sound redundant, but it's truly the Holy Spirit, just to be able to pray. And since I've had some time since the incident happened, February would be 3 years. So after time, I've been able to, I relive it every day. It's got to keep it real. You never, and I used to hear people say that, I think about this person every day, but I never really realized that they really meant that. And so I realized that I relived this every day for 2.5 years. So to put it on paper was not like, oh, I'm suddenly reliving it, because I've been reliving it every day. This was just the next step. So to just put it on the paper was the next step in the progression and the healing. And like I said, getting it out more. And it just, for some reason, it was just a sudden sense of release for me. But, and I was able to do it because I have to constantly continue. And like I said, it was hard. I've had to stop certain chapters. I couldn't just go straight through. I had to stop and talk about it with my family, especially my husband. And then I was able to, get my bearings back and go back and write.
Okay. What has been the response from not just the public, but from family and friends, people that obviously knew the incident, and maybe even some people that were connected to it? What has been their response?
Every single person has almost given me a very similar response. They've always said, it was an emotional roller coaster. There was moments in the book where you laughed. There was moments where you're going to cry. And there's times where you're going to get angry. So all those emotions are going to roll with you as you read this story. And everybody has said that to me. And it's funny, I got a response back today from a longtime friend who said how she had to do it in chunks. And that's what most people are saying. They said,
Right.
I read the first half, then I had to put it down. I had to
Oh,
cry a little, then I laughed a little. I picked it back up and I finally went to the end. And when they get to the end, that's when they said they really feel the wave and the flood of emotions. But
wow.
people tell me that they cannot read it all at once. Most people have to read a part and they know what's coming. So they
Right.
just feel the anticipation. They say, I had to put it down and go back. So
Wow.
it's interesting when they describe that to me, how they're reading this book, the emotions they're going through.
Right. If you just joined us, this is Talking Books, a place for people who like books, reading them and writing them. And we're talking to Dr. Joyce Brooks. She's the author of Finding, excuse me, Serenity, Courage, and Unconditional Love, a true story about a tragic incident in her life with her son and her daughter-in-law. What is it that you're expecting or desiring the reader to get from the book? What is their takeaway?
I think what I'm getting is probably not what I expected, because the thing I expected was for people to come away saying, hey, I'm going to be an advocate, or I'm going to really help do this, and I've gotten some people say that. And some people, I thought they would, say, hey, it really helped me. And I've gotten some of that. But the most response that I've gotten are people saying, hey, you really helped me to get to know these characters. I know them now. The people that really didn't know them are saying, hey, now I know them. And now the story has more meaning because these are now real people. I heard the story, but I never really knew them. And
Right.
so I'm getting that a lot. And I thought, wow, I never thought about that happening as they read this book, because they say the character description was so detailed that they couldn't help but get to know the characters as they read the story.
So are there answers in here? You said earlier that, one of the things that you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll get angry throughout the book. And are there answers for people? Is it cathartic for people? Some of all of that?
It's a little bit of all of that. And it's ironic that one of the most powerful chapters in the book, and I can't say too much without giving it away, but in the midst of it all, there was this pastor who said to me, God is going to get the glory from your son's murder. And I can remember, I was angry when he said that, because
Right, I can imagine so.
I'm thinking, what do you mean? How does God get the glory in this? And I couldn't even wrap my mind around it at the moment. And I'm going to tell you, when you get to that chapter, so many people keep bringing it to me, like, I was wondering what you were talking about. Then when they get to that chapter, they're like, oh my gosh, how powerful was that? Because I got a little chapter that explains that. And people are like, wow. And it's so ironic, the guy that said that to me, he was the witness to the crime. He was a pastor. He was the only eyewitness that came forward.
Wow, wow. I alluded to this, but I want to ask it again. Why is this story important to be told and important for people to read it, to hear it, to know about it?
I need people to know that they're not alone. When you're going through this type of horrendous tragedy, you feel so alone. And
Wow.
that was my biggest thing. I felt like, and I'm gonna be honest, I looked at the world, when people say through a different lens, and it's real. I woke up the next day and I was angry at the world for some reason, thinking, why are they so happy? Everybody still has everything in their life. And I lost my son. I felt like that was, I can't even put it into words, but I felt like I was alone. Nobody else feels like me. Not even thinking in my right mind that there's so many other parents out there grieving and hurting that are going through what I'm going through.
Right.
But I wanted people to understand, if they are going through this, you are not alone. There are so many other people out there that's dealing with tragedy like this or similar. And also, they need to know that there's things that can be done. Some of this could have prevented, I feel, and I alluded to some of that in the book. So I'm hoping that it definitely sparks an awareness to anyone that is going through these things that the character in this story went through, and they can be preventative and hopefully get answers beforehand.
Wow, good. So it does give some answers, some things that, okay, we can do. So helping people if they've gone through, but potentially helping some people so they don't go through.
Yes.
Oh, that is powerful. That is powerful.
Yeah.
Dr. Joyce Brooks on Talking Books, her book, Finding Serenity, Courage, and unconditional love. So how can the people get their copy of your book?
So it's definitely on Amazon. It's available through Amazon. Just put in the title and put in paperback or books or whatever, and it should come up under my name. And also on my website, Brooks Consulting Institute.org.
Give it to us one more time.
Brooks Consulting Institute.org. That's my website.
Okay.
And also the name of my online business, my entrepreneurship is Brooks Consulting Institute.org.
Okay. And how can people if someone wants to get in contact with you, speaking or talking about this, helping other people with this, how can they reach you?
I have a website. It's brooksglobal31@gmail.com. Again, brooksglobal31@gmail.com.
Dr. Joyce Brooks, a powerful story. I can't imagine how it felt, obviously, but the power that it took and is took to write it, but also, promoting it, because I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, in promoting it, it's like reliving it again.
Absolutely. Writing it was reliving it again. But again, like I said, we relive it every day. So it wasn't something I wasn't used to.
Okay.
And it's almost 3 years now. So it's part of life. It's part of life that I've learned to accept.
Wow. Wow. Powerful, helpful, commending you for being able to do this and willing to tell your story to help somebody else, because going through the tragedy, going through it once, when it happened, going through it when you wrote, as writing the book, but even making the decision, I'm going to write this book to help some other people. That is powerful. And that's not something you can do in and of yourself.
Can I add one more thing? I want to add one thing. I never, like I said, I knew going in helping people was one thing, but I had no idea. Just 2 weeks ago, the day after Thanksgiving, actually, one of my closest friends, they called me, her 29-year-old son had just got murdered the day after Thanksgiving.
Wow.
And she was with me. She walked through the trenches with me when I lost my son. So she know the grief and the horror I went through. So I'm thinking, wow, how powerful is it now that these things that I've created, these resources, I can hand over to her and help her and talk to her. And I have been talking to her daily and giving her advice and helping her. And I'm thinking, I never realized that, in this manner, in this soon, that I would be helping someone that close to me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness, a powerful story, a powerful testimony, powerful ministry, I guess, and you would understand that word.
That's exactly what it is. It's all God's work.
My goodness, my goodness. Any parting words before we go, Dr. Brooks?
No, I just want to say, I want to bring in awareness to domestic violence. Just know that it is real, and men and women both suffer domestic violence, and you need to say something, speak up, and if you can help someone that may be going through this, please reach out to them, because you have no idea at the end of the day what people are going through.
My. Dr. Joyce Brooks, Finding Serenity, Courage, and Unconditional Love. You need to get the copy of this book. If you know somebody that has gone through tragedy, this can help them. If you know somebody that's in the midst of this type of situation, you want to get this book for yourself or to them so that they can get some help, so their story can end a little bit different. Absolutely. And I'm quite sure that's what you would desire, Dr. Brooks.
Absolutely. And I'm also available on Facebook, just my name, Joyce Brooks.
Okay. You can reach out to her. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks, for being with us and helping our audience, authors, but just other people that may be dealing with this type of tragedy or some tragedy. This book can be of help to them. So we say thank you so much for your courage, and thank you so much for what you're doing. We appreciate it. You have been listening and watching Talking Books. I'm Dwayne E. Shigg. I'm Dwayne Shigg, and we've been talking to Dr. Joyce Brooks, author of Find Serenity, Courage, and Unconditional Love. If you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at @encourageman, the letter N, Courage Man. You can watch some of our other shows of Talking Books on YouTube at Talking Books with Dwayne E. Shigg. some of our other shows and some of my videos, and you can find me on Facebook at Your Encouragement MINT. And we thank you so much for being with us. And as always, want you to remember, and if you are an author and you'd like to promote your book, you'd like to talk about your books here on Talking Book, you can contact us at drshig@gmail.com, drshig@gmail.com. And as always, want you to remember that the dream is doable. Go get it. Stay encouraged. Be blessed.